After 6 weeks of fantasy football, you know if you are building a juggernaut or just trying to make the playoffs. No matter where you are, we have 8 different trades that you need to make today. And like we have for the last couple of weeks, Ty, we're going to go a buy and a sell each. And then we're going to take 4 players and play a little buy, sell, hold on the back end. We got some good names. Ladd, McConkey, Brian Thomas Jr., Quinshon, Judkins, and Jake Ferguson. So make sure you stick around for that. And Ty, you're jumping right in with Isaiah Pacheco, who, believe it or not, people, right before we started recording this, Ty and I just made a trade for Isaiah Pacheco in a Dynasty League. We're Ty, following his words that he's about to tell you, bought in Isaiah Pacheco. So why don't you give the people the reason why you did it and the reason why they should too?
Well, because ladies and gentlemen, do I have phenomenal news. Isaiah Pacheco actually got the backfield against the Lions. And when I say he got the backfield, he dominated the backfield. He played 40 snaps to Kareem Hunt's 13. But most importantly, the thing that he was lacking, that where he was pretty much a ghost when the ball got into these areas of the field, he got all of the goal line snaps, which used to go to Kareem Hunt. They went to Isaiah Pacheco, and he got the majority of the short yardage snaps that were also going to Kareem Hunt for whatever reason. Maybe we are so far removed from the injury that we now trust him again, or that again, Kareem Hunt is showing that he is not the Kareem Hunt of old and isn't as explosive as we would hope him to be. So now we get Pacheco, who we were saying this a couple of weeks ago. He looks better. He looks a little more quicker. He's able to kind of cut like he used to again. So all of these things, I believe, have kind of amounted to now Isaiah Pacheco owning the backfield. Now, obviously, I would love to see another game of this before, being as confident as I am, because I am Mr. pro Isaiah Pacheco out of the 3 of us guys. I'll throw it all the way back to 2 years ago now, probably, where I was like, guys, I feel like we need to be more in Isaiah Pacheco. And I was told, hey, pipe down, be quiet, just know your place, know your role. So I said, okay, fine. That's fine. But all of this to say, if Isaiah Pacheco is going to have those value touches moving forward, he can be a borderline fringe starter in the immediate, and he may actually be a second half of the year winning piece, because I'm expecting Kansas City to continue getting to the goal line. I'm expecting them to kind of methodically move their way down the field like we've talked about, where they're not trying to go over the top, but they are kind of taking what defenses are giving them, which creates opportunities in the short yardage. So schedule also looks really nice in order to do so. According to PFF, they are about middle of the pack in terms of schedule difficulty for the rest of the year, but it's a lot better when you consider the fact that through their first 6 games, they had the 3rd most difficult. So look, again, as the Mr. Pro Isaiah Pacheco guy, I'm saying hey, wheels up, let's go. I understand if you're a little more hesitant, but I would rather just get in and buy now before a touchdown or 2 hit, and then the price gets jacked up even more.
Yeah, and Ty's not saying go send George Pickens for Isaiah Pacheco, right? This is a guy. This is a guy you can get on the cheap right now, right? You can go get him for pennies on the dollar. And I agree with you. The 67% snap percentage is a big deal. That is huge for Pacheco. It shows, hey, he's taken over this backfield. Rashard Smith was supposed to be something. He was supposed to factor in. He had 4 snaps last week, right? This is going to be Pacheco's backfield. And if it is, with the way that this offense is moving, we're going to have some pretty nice weeks coming up for Pacheco. And it's not top 5 overall weeks, but if you get RB 16 rest of the season on Isaiah Pacheco for what you have to give up for him now, that is going to be a great return on investment.
I'm trying to hold myself back from saying hey, go use a Kamani Vidal for Isaiah Pacheco, because I want to acknowledge we still don't know the Amari and Hampton timeline. We know that it's going to be likely longer than the minimum of 4 games, but that's who you can try to kind of negotiate with. You could even do like a Jameson Williams. Like if people are looking for just massive upside, go give them Jameson Williams. I like, even if you want to package up some like death pieces on your bench for Pacheco, I think you can do so, because like you said, like the price has not exactly gone up just yet because we haven't seen the touchdowns, but we're telling you the usage and the snaps are coming back to Pacheco. So it would be more wise to get in on him now, rather than when it's too late.
For sure. And before we get to my guy, as always, we are bringing you 3 episodes a week. This is our second one of the week. We had a trending or ending episode before this. After this, if you're watching, we have our starts and sits episode, which you don't want to miss. But we're doing this every week for you guys. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on those notifications, join the fellowship, because you do not want to miss out. And Ty, I'm gonna go up a little bit of a tier here with my running back. Usually you're our workhorse guy, and even Breece Hall right now. Wouldn't consider him, the Josh Jacobs, Devon Achane level that we've seen in the past, both of which, I got to commend you, great buys when you said to buy in on them. Breece Hall, it's been gross, to say the least, right? And that's just because he's a Jet. Breece Hall himself has looked good. The Jets just don't look good. He has no touchdowns so far. He has over 100 touches this year and no touchdowns. In 4 out of 6 games, he has 18 plus touches. So he's getting that workhorse volume that you want to see. Braylon Allen going to be out a couple more weeks. They don't trust Isaiah Davis in this role. And now with Garrett Wilson out, for me, what's exciting is this receiving work is going to go up, mainly because it has to. I mean, they have no one else to throw the ball to outside of him and Mason Taylor. You're just not worried about these wide receivers, factoring in. So for me, I'm going to continue to bet on the volume. I'm going to understand that it's going to be pretty gross, but with the way he's looking, there is going to be some positive touchdown regression. And when I say some, he might finish the year with 4 touchdowns, right? I'm not telling you he's going to get double-digit touchdowns, but he's going to end the year with more than 0. And so it's going to come back a little bit, especially with the volume that he's getting. And I'll admit, Breece Hall is going to be in a lot of trade talks. And really, there isn't many areas right now that wouldn't be better than where he is with the New York Jets if he does get traded. Like, that's just being honest where he's at. He might have a little more competition, but he's going to be around the end zone, maybe a little bit better of an offensive line no matter where he goes. So I think Breece Hall is a buy based off of volume, understanding, hey, it's been kind of gross, 2 down weeks. Now's the time to capitalize.
Yeah, Breece Hall is an interesting one, because I feel like if you are a Breece Hall manager, you're on the end of 2 spectrums. One is, I want nothing to do with the Jets anymore. The Jets absolutely suck. I just want to get rid of any Jets pieces that I have. The other side of this is, Breece Hall has been getting the snaps and the work. So I'm going to trust that, like you said, the touchdown regression is coming. But I feel like that there is still an opportunity to buy no matter what extreme you find yourself on with Breece Hall. Yes, the upcoming schedule is a little bit dicey, I'll say. I mean, you got Carolina next week, and Carolina has been bottling up running backs left and right. But then you get Cincinnati right after. That's nice.
That's a dream.
And then you get the Browns right after that. And it's like, oh man. Then you get the Patriots, and it's like, no, all right. And then it goes Baltimore, Atlanta, Miami. But the most exciting part is then the playoffs. Jacksonville, New Orleans, New England. If there is a time, if Breece Hall is still on the Jets, I should throw in that caveat as well. If there is a time for Breece Hall to really come through in terms of the longevity of the season, I'm going to bet on the second half, or like in the very end, because some of those matchups really are nice matchups for Breece Hall. So if there's going to be one consistent in this Jets offense, like you were saying, moving forward without Garrett Wilson, even when Garrett Wilson comes back, I wouldn't be surprised if it is Breece Hall.
And like you said, getting Carolina, Cleveland, 2 of the next 3 games isn't great, but that's where Garrett Wilson being out for a little bit is a factor, because you're not going to be as reliant on the rushing yards in those games. They're going to have to throw the ball, and he's going to be a big part of that. So that's where I'm okay with, hey, it's a rougher schedule these next couple of weeks. He's the guy I'm going to go buy on. Moving on to ourselves now, Ty. We talked about this guy a couple weeks ago. I did. And then he had a 80-yard touchdown against the Vikings. Stats looked really great. The last 2 weeks, why should we sell off of DK Metcalf when he's wide receiver 1 on Pittsburgh, when he's had 2 good weeks? Why are you out?
Just because I'm expecting more of what we saw in week 3, week 4, week 3, week 4 with Seattle, New England. Yes. I'm expecting more of those games than what we saw against Minnesota, than what we saw against Cleveland. Yes, the targets were nice against Cleveland. Yes, the big play, the 80-yard touchdown or whatever was nice against Minnesota. I'm not expecting much of that to change because we've talked about this, or at least we've made this argument before. DK Metcalf is being used in Arthur Smith's offense, and Arthur Smith is not kind of designing the offense for the Aaron Rodgers to DK Metcalf connection. Now, I think I will state the obvious because you can see the box scores and go, well, yeah, duh. DK Metcalf will still have moments in games where he can, again, reel in the touchdown, the jump ball in the back corner of the end zone, all that stuff. Like, he will have moments. So it's not me. I'm not going to sit here and say that like DK Metcalf is absolutely going to bust for the rest of the year. But when you take into account that there are 39 other receivers that have that are higher than him in expected fantasy points, I think it's just I think DK Metcalf is more risky than what we are kind of assuming as the Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiver 1. And what's to say at some point that, you know, we, like I said, we see more of those Seattle, New England games or even the Cleveland game, but we're not scoring and we're not catching balls that are continually like 16 or more yards. So I don't mind holding on to DK, right? Like, I want to make that clear. If you want to hold on to DK because, again, you do buy into the wide receiver 1 narrative and all that stuff, that's fine. Personally, I just think it's more risky than what we think it is, and that we're going to get some inconsistencies, and the inconsistencies is what's going to kill us as we get further on into the year. And if we're trying to make the playoffs, or at least we're contending, I feel like you can get a pretty decent return for him if you're, again, contending, or if you're trying to get into the playoffs. I just think the inconsistencies are what's eventually going to keep you out.
Yeah, he's had 1 season over 130 targets, right? So he doesn't get this crazy target volume. So even if he does keep up kind of the pace he's at right now, he's not going to see a ton of targets. He's not going to see the volume. So you're banking on, like you said, these long plays. It's just the variance is going to be pretty great with DK Metcalf. And I don't believe it's going to bounce back because we haven't seen it over his career except for 2022 when he had 141 targets. Arthur Smith doesn't really feature the wide receiver 1 in his offense like you kind of want him to. He mixes it up quite a bit. So I think all that kind of adds together of, I just don't trust him week in and week out to put this up consistently, just because he needs the touchdown. He needs the big play, and maybe he can keep it up. But I don't think Aaron Rodgers and Arthur Smith are really the tandem to kind of keep that moving.
I'll just say this. When you've got 4 games with a touchdown in a row and 1 touchdown again against Minnesota was the 80-yard touchdown. You got a touchdown against Cleveland on a 20 something. You get my point. Touchdowns are saving him right now. Mm-hmm. And if we're not going to score and we're seeing the stat lines that he's getting, like, you can see how the floor is actually way lower than what we want it to be. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm most fearful of. Yes, he still has a ceiling because, again, if he scores, it's likely going to be a really, really good week for him. But again, I don't want to take the chance with the floor that he has if he doesn't score.
For sure. My guy, similar argument. Sam LaPorta, 2 good weeks in a row. I totally get that. Over the last 2 weeks, he's been a top 5 tight end, scored twice. That obviously helps a lot. My issue when I look at LaPorta is he's had 1 game over 6 targets. And I think people still see him as this top 5 tight end, whereas week in and week out, unless he gets that touchdown, he's like pretty much every other top tight end to me in the top 15. And that's kind of been our argument against LaPorta. Ty, I know you've been a little more out on LaPorta, this season. Jameson Williams, we saw him get going a little bit. Amon-Ra, Jahmyr Gibbs always going to get going. They want to get Monty more involved in this backfield. It's just, there's just so many mouths to feed in Detroit that's my worry with LaPorta. He needs the touchdowns to have these good games. Otherwise, you will see stretches like weeks 2 through 4 where it's 4.1, 5.3, 5.4 half PPR fantasy points. And that just scares me enough that I'm like, hey, this is probably the ceiling that you're going to have Sam LaPorta at. Let's move on.
Yeah. I hate kind of ragging on the Detroit offense for as long as we have, because they have proven to be one of the top units. Again, obviously not at the same clip as it was last year, but we keep bringing up like the Jameson Williams and the Sam LaPortas because we keep trying to tell you guys like there is going to be something to give, or there's going to be an odd one out every single game. And that's kind of what has happened so far. And our best bets would be Jameson Williams and Sam LaPorta are going to be the first ones up. That would kind of be the odd ones out. I will say this though, over the last 2 weeks, right, with the big games that LaPorta has had, he is first in yards after the catch. It's giving me Tucker Kraft vibes from last year.
Yeah.
Where, yes, if he has like the big, the big catch, the big play, the big yards after catch, it's likely going to be a good game for LaPorta. And you're going to go, wow, like it, he can finish as a top 5 tight end on the week. If we don't get those, he's going to be finishing closer to like the tight end 20 or unless like, again, we get the goal line, like target, which doesn't really seem to be happening at this point when you have a David Montgomery, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs that you want to feed. So I'm not saying that Sam LaPorta is Tucker Kraft. Don't hear what I'm not saying, but you can see where like, it's a very similar argument to DK Metcalf where it's like, don't expect this to be consistent. We're going to continue seeing some more inconsistencies with LaPorta. It's going to be some really high highs and some really low lows. So if you got somebody that's kind of, they're willing to bite on the whole, Sam LaPorta is back, he's a top 5 tight end the rest of the year kind of thing, I would go target them and go deal LaPorta, because I will summarize it. You and I just think there's going to be more inconsistencies to come, and there's nothing guaranteed with LaPorta's production so far.
Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Underdog, where you can get into the game this season playing Pick'em. It's extremely simple. Just pick higher or lower on 2 or more of your favorite players. For example, I'll pick the highers on Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, and Xavier Worthy. If I played $10 and got all 3 of them right, I would win $60 just by watching football. And that's the beauty of Pick'em. You can track your picks and your wins while you enjoy the game. Now, if you're not on Underdog yet, scan the QR code on your screen or use our code FELLAS when you sign up, because new customers will get $50 in bonus funds when you play your first $5 on the app. Plus, Underdog will give you a free pick to use in your first entry. Again, that's code FELLAS over on Underdog. Now let's get you back to the rest of the show.
And now we're going to transition to our buy, sell, hold like we talked about earlier. And we're going to start with Ladd McConkey. Coming off a pretty good week, right? The week where when you drafted him, this is what you expected. This is what you were hoping for from Ladd. Obviously, the big caveat with this 100-yard, 1 touchdown performance is that Quinton Johnston was out. So what does it actually mean moving forward, Ty? How are you valuing Ladd? How are you looking at this situation?
This is an interesting one because if you like Ladd McConkey, you want to buy. You want to believe that like what we have seen the last 2 weeks is going to stick. I'm just worried that it's not going to. Because even without Quinton Johnston, like we've had the offensive line issue, so we're not able to push the ball downfield. And that's kind of what we need Ladd McConkey to get, because what we've known through 6 weeks so far with or without Quinton Johnston is that Ladd McConkey isn't exactly their go-to guy in the red zone. So if we're not going to be getting targets like those, we need either monster volume or we need the downfield shots. We need the big plays. And we're not getting the downfield shots. Again, for many reasons, but mainly offensive line play. Like they are keeping Ladd McConkey closer to the line than what we would like, honestly. So if Quinton Johnston comes back and is likely going to take back kind of those downfield shots, I'm I'm expecting some regression here. And it stinks to say because we've wanted McConkey to get going for so long. But let's also not forget a 42-yard catch that was kind of a fluky, kind of busted coverage, missed tackle at the very end of the game. I don't want to say it saved the day, but it definitely sweetened the day for sure. So, right. So all of this to say, if you can sell, I would. But I'm worried that people are going to kind of see right through and just be like, duh, it's because Quinton Johnson didn't play. And then you're going to be stuck holding on to McConkey, which I guess isn't the worst problem to have. But I don't know if just this one game is going to be enough to get people to buy back in on McConkey.
Yeah, I would agree. I think if you can sell him near where his value was, people think he's bouncing back. I think that's what you do. But more than likely, it probably is a hold. The scariest thing for McConkey right now is he has a 22% air yard share for the Chargers, which is 45th. We're talking behind guys like Dallas Goedert, Trey Tucker, Hollywood Brown. I mean, he's behind Keenan Allen, way behind Quinton Johnston. So it's like you're just, like you said, you're not getting these explosive plays. And when you have a team that out of nowhere has a whole bunch of mouths to feed. You have Gadsden coming up. Keenan Allen you weren't expecting. Quinton Johnson you weren't expecting him to be the way that he is. And, maybe they potentially bring in a running back. So there you have all of this stuff coming back. Or Marion Hampton's going to be back at some point this year when you really need Lad most, and he was getting volume. So all these different factors I don't think this is the bounce back to course correct. I'm with you on that. He's a very good wide receiver. He feels like he's Zay Flowers now for us, where Zay Flowers was, Zay Flowers didn't have the passing pie, but he was the only guy. Lad McConkey just has a whole bunch of other guys around him. Very good wide receivers. If I have a team, I want him hunt. Similar to Sam LaPorta. Very good tight end. He just got so many mouths to feed that for a guy who's not going to get the explosive plays, not a huge red zone threat, and he's not getting crazy volume, it's like, I just don't think I can trust it moving forward.
Yeah. So I guess ultimately, like if you're able to sell, like if you have a window, I guess now would be the window, but you do need your trade partner to at least buy in because you're not going to be able, I think you would agree with this. You're not going to get full value for McConkey at this point based on how the season has gone so far. And I'm going to take the chances that people are not going to buy in exactly that this was the McConkey reemergence or anything like that. So unfortunately, you may be stuck with this one. And again, it's not the worst problem because I feel like there's a lot of worse depth pieces to have other than
McConkey.
But it's going to stink because it's going to be such an eyesore just looking at like a sunk cost that you spent late second, early third capital on.
Yep. This next guy, people probably already know where I stand, unfortunately.
You should just lead it off then.
I just telegraph it all. Brian Thomas is my guy. I think I'm buying off of this game. I am not selling. I believe in what Liam Cohen is selling me right now. I think this team is continuing to turn another corner. 8 catches, 90 yards, and a touchdown. Should have been 9 catches, 134 yards and a touchdown, or 144 yards and a touchdown. But Travis Hunter doesn't know how to line up on offense because they can't figure him out, which is just a travesty. Like, let this kid figure it out. Give him the ball because he is special. But we're not talking about Travis Hunter. We're talking about Brian Thomas. And Ty, I think this is sticky. He's at a 35% first read target share in 2 of his last 3 games, which if you're like, what does that mean? That's a similar number to Puka, JSN, guys like that who've been elite this year. Obviously, they've done it over the whole season, but we've seen this switch since week 4 of the way that they're going to Brian Thomas. I've also, I don't remember who tweeted it out, but last season, Brian Thomas had a rough 3-game stretch. I think it was weeks 8 through 10 with a chest injury. Then beginning of this season, weeks 2 and 3, he had the wrist injury. Both those weeks, fantasy points averaging less than 10 points per game. Every other game other than those 5 weeks, he's averaging over 17 fantasy points per game. So maybe, just maybe he was actually hurt. not as bad as Juwan Jennings, who had 5 cracked ribs and a low and high ankle sprain, but maybe he's just, which is just another ridiculous thing, by the way.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's more hurt than Juwan Jennings right
exactly. now. But yeah, I'm all in on buying Brian Thomas. So people need you to be a little more of the voice of reason. Because if you're where I am, then I think everybody's going to buy Brian Thomas Jr. right now.
I think generally speaking, he is a buy because I'm expecting more of these games like we just saw against Seattle moving forward. My issue lies in the fact that I think the price is gonna kind of overcorrect here to the point where it's going to be so much that it's actually going to be more hurtful if you go buy Brian Thomas for what you're having to give up to get him now at this point. So I think if anything, I think this is one that you just watch a little more closely this upcoming week. And he's got the Rams over in England. I don't want to be so outspoken to be like, he's going to have a bad game. I've got a feeling that like Jacksonville might struggle and Brian Thomas might struggle. And if that happens, then the window is wide open again to go buy Brian Thomas Jr. So generally speaking, again, I think he is a buy. If I'm a manager of Brian Thomas, I'm holding. There is no way no one is getting Brian Thomas Jr. off of me unless I know that I'm getting I'm tearing up with Brian Thomas. But even at that, it's very, very few and far between as to who exactly would be the tier up player. So maybe I'm being a little too like patient with this one, but I would rather, again, just see one more week to see maybe we get another San Francisco game where stat line's all right, but it's not exactly what people were hoping after the Seattle game. And then you go by.
I understand. Yeah. Course may correct, but Ty, it does make me happy to hear you say the word that Brian Thomas is by. It warms my heart. Another guy I think we won't have too much disagreement, but maybe I'll be wrong, is Mr. Quinshon Judkins. And I get it. He is a Cleveland Brown. We talked about Breece Hall. There might not be much worse than being a Jet or a Cleveland Brown as an offensive player, especially a running back. However, Ty, Quinshon Judkins, 84 carries right now after not playing in week 1. And let me see, that is still top 15 in carries. So this dude is getting work. Only 12 carries for 36 yards last week. Are you trying to buy in on Quinshon Judkins, hoping that people are going, Dylan Gabriel's so bad, they can't go back to Flacco, this is a train wreck? Are you holding? Are you selling? Where are you at with Judkins?
If I'm a manager, I'm holding. For a guy that is, over the last 3 games, a fringe running back 1 in terms of usage, ain't no way I'm moving that. And you look at the upcoming schedule for Cleveland, boy, it gets you excited because there's a lot of matchups that they will be willing to give Judkins the ball and just let him go to work. So I'm holding if I'm a manager. If I know if my buddy is the manager of Quinshon Judkins and panicking, because like you said, Dylan Gabriel is absolute garbage. This Cleveland offense is no longer any good, which wasn't really to begin with, but you get the point. Yes, go buy Quinshon Judkins. Please do so. I know we talked about Breece Hall. I would give up Breece Hall for Quinshon Judkins in a heartbeat right now. I would even move on from like DeAndre Swift. I would move on from him for Quinshon Judkins. Here's one. I'll let you go with this one. Would you give up Travis Etienne for Quinshon Judkins?
Ooh. Man. I don't know if I could just because the Jags are cooking, but I think that's the line. I think that's the type of player. That's the type of player we're talking about with Quinshon right now because of the volume he's getting, even though he's been on a terrible team. But yeah, that's a really good. That one would make me think for a while. Like that one's one I think I'd sit and stare at and be like, "Oh, the shiny new thing," or Travis Etienne on a good team. It's like,
yes.
which way do I want to go with this? I think they both have good upside, limited receiving upside. Etienne obviously could get touchdowns, hasn't got there yet. Judkins should get touchdowns, just isn't in the red zone. So, it isn't going to get a ton of those opportunities, right? So you have the back and forth either way. So it kind of depends which way you want to go with it. Are you going to trust in the volume or trust in the team is essentially the play you're making there. But I agree with you. If I can go get Quinshon Judkins, if I can get a manager who's like, I want nothing to do with this Browns team. Yes, sir. I mean, he had 23 carries against Minnesota. He had 21 against Detroit. The one against Detroit's my favorite just because like they were losing the entire game. Like it was, and he still had 21 carries, 82 yards, 23 carries next week against Minnesota, 18 carries against Green Bay, averaged 5.2 yards a carry against that defense too. So he's looked good, been good. I think he's only going to get better over the back half of the year. I think at this point, we're not worried about a suspension anymore for him because I think that was kind of a looming thing of what is all this going to look like. Probably going to wait till next year. So yeah, I'm all for buying in at Quinshon Judkins.
I will say it does make you think just a little bit that it was that him and Jerome Ford had the same amount of snaps against Pittsburgh, which was kind of weird because, again,
it was a weird game for Browns in general.
It was like, again, Jerry Jeudy can walk away with 13 targets and just 5 catches because Dylan Gabriel probably. Mm-hmm. But what's weird about that is that this is a pretty similar game in terms of the game script to the Detroit game, but he didn't get the same receiving opportunities as Jerome Ford did. So I wonder if that's just a quarterback thing, right? Where either we're not checking it down or whatever it may be, whatever the reason may be. But I feel like in some way it doesn't really matter because I think this might be the most wild thing I'm about to say all year. This Cleveland team will be better when Shedeur Sanders gets under center.
Ooh.
Not saying that they're going to be phenomenal, but compared to where they are right now with Dylan Gabriel to where they could be with Shedeur Sanders, it might improve things just enough that Quinshon Judkins can actually kind of like realize the utilization that he's at right now.
I didn't realize you were a Shedeur truther.
I'm not.
Undercover. Ooh.
No.
You heard it here first. Thoughts Shedeur should have been a first-round pick. Mr. Tyler Plath.
I think I had Shedeur as a second. But that's more of a like anti Dylan Gabriel statement than it is a pro Shedeur Sanders statement. That's all that I'm saying.
All right.
You
moving
had
on.
Shedeur Sanders as the first overall pick. I know that for sure.
That's true. Yes, I thought he was going to play quarterback lefty though when I had that. So the fact he's playing righty did move him down my board. Next we have Jake Ferguson, the tight end 1 overall. We had this discussion a little bit with George Pickens, but it is a different conversation between Pickens and Jake Ferguson. They're playing different positions. They're different types of athletes. The volume's been nutty for Ferguson. Obviously, this last week, it wasn't quite where it had been, but still 51 targets. He only had 3 targets, three catches. Did score a touchdown, luckily, to kind of save the day. But coming off weeks of 12, 14, 7, and 9 targets, catching almost every pass too, which has been pretty ridiculous. His 44 receptions, do you know where that would rank him in terms of wide receivers?
Top 5.
Tied for second with Amon-Ra St. Brown. Tied for second overall with him, Amon-Ra. Actually, he'd be third. Christian McCaffrey has more than both of them, which is just another nutty stat. But Ty, obviously, CeeDee Lamb is going to be back. If not this week, then next week. So does that make you want to try to sell Jake Ferguson? Or is this a similar conversation to what we had with Xavier Worthy last week of everybody's panicking, so you can't get quite enough, but he might actually be just fine and be a hold or maybe even a sneaky buy?
I think the first thing that we need to just get out of the way and state the obvious, CeeDee Lamb is coming back. So yes, he was getting some of those big targets without CeeDee Lamb in the lineup. I still expect Jake Ferguson to still be involved, but it's obviously just not going to be at the same level. And when we talked about it with George Pickens, like he said at the very top, of just like this whole offense is going to shift around again when CD comes back. And I mentioned yesterday, Jake Ferguson kind of owns the middle, or at least has done most of his damage over the middle of the field between the numbers. And I'm kind of worried that if we're going to take a hit in volume with CD Lamb coming back, and you just look at some of their games coming up, that middle part of the field is not exactly like the most friendly or most easy to operate in. You got teams like Washington, Denver, Philly, Detroit, and the Giants that like it's middle part of the field is not exactly open here. Yes, you do have some games like against Minnesota and Kansas City and Arizona that he will be able to operate in. But I'm just worried this will be another similar argument to what we were saying about DK Metcalf and Sam LaPorta. I just think we're going to get some more inconsistencies as we go down the stretch here, that for what we've been seeing as the tight end 1, top 3 in usage, all that kind of stuff, I don't think he's going to live up to that the second half of the year. So if I'm a Jake Ferguson manager, there are going to be plenty of people that are going to be looking for tight ends. I might just kind of dangle Jake Ferguson just enough to be like, hey, what would you give for Jake Ferguson right now? Because we know the tight end landscape, there are not many good fantasy tight ends. If your name is not Trey McBride, and if your name is not Tyler Warren, and if your name is not Jake Ferguson, it's just kind of a crapshoot as to who's going to have like the good game and the good week. So I would be at least I'm a little more intrigued to see what the value is to potentially sell. But at the same time, like I just said, knowing that there are not many good tight ends, you do have one. If you have Jake Ferguson, you do have one. So you may just kind of have to roll with the inconsistencies in some of the down games. But I don't mind having a piece of this Dallas offense if they're going to be all offense and no defense.
I'm going to be honest. I think I'm a hold for Jake Ferguson.
It's fair.
And the reason is I just, like you said, I'm concerned that you just won't get enough. I think he's still going to be a top 5 tight end rest of the season. That's where I have him. I'm just looking at yards per reception right now, 6.9. CD and George Pickens just aren't going to take those targets away, that area of the field. Him and Javonte are, it's essentially, I'm going to check down to Jake Ferguson or Javonte, or I'm going to throw it down the field to CD or George Pickens. Like, that's their entire game right now. So that's why I think he's still going to get volume, not at the same rate. Do I think he is going to outpace Tyler Warren, Trey McBride, rest of the season volume-wise? No, I don't. But I think he's still going to be a little more consistent volume-wise than Sam LaPorta. I view them similarly, but I think I still give the edge to Jake Ferguson. Teams throwing a ton. They don't have, right, Javonte Williams is getting passes thrown to him. He's just not the same weapon as a Jahmyr Gibbs. So that's why I do give the edge to Jake Ferguson moving forward. But yeah, I'm going to say he's a hold. I'm not really buying or selling. I think I'm just going to kind of sit where I'm at on Jake Ferguson right now.
Which is fair. I think, if anything, this just is the start of a window where you at least start considering, do I move Jake Ferguson or just do I hold on to him? Like, there's still plenty of season left. I just think it is, I think it's okay to hold and just wait and see, but at least recognize that there may be a window here that you may need to sell.
For sure. Well, that wraps it up for us in our week 7 buys and sells. A little buy, sell, hold for you as well. Don't miss out on our starts and sits tomorrow. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, turn on those notifications so you don't miss that. If you want to follow us on our other socials, I am at Camla FFF, Tyler _Plath for Tyler, FFL is for the Fellas main page on Twitter, the FFL is on Instagram, Fantasy Football Fellas, TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook, and Fantasy Football Fellas Shorts. If you want that short form, over on the Red app, but I guess we're here, so I can say YouTube. Make sure you're following along. Don't want to miss it. Hopefully, these trades can help put you in position to either make the playoffs or get a championship. We will see you tomorrow. Deuces.
Deuces.